All right, he's not answering. Or maybe he's in transit. All right, call the meeting to order. It is, what time? 7:07. It's the St. Mark Street Park Working Group. Final meeting because we're expiring on the 30th.
Margarita, just to catch, because I've made this mistake myself. Are you recording?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And
okay.
Hassan helped me out with that. He's recording and then he's going to edit it like he does often. All right. Okay. But thank you for that. I can take all the help I can get with this. It's the first time I've done it. All right. So our one agenda item for tonight is to discuss the naming of the park. And the idea behind this is we would come up with a list of possible names to forward to the Board of Selectmen, select persons. All right, so what I would like to do is just would like everyone to just speak briefly and tell me what you think would be reasonable names, and I'm going to write down a list. Kevin, do you want to start?
Sure, happy to. And Marguerite, can you allow me to make me co-host so I can share my screen? I have a couple just quick slides that will have me talking less if I show more.
If you can do share?
Yeah.
All right.
You just have to promote me to co-host or something.
All right, hang on a second. There you go. That should do it.
Let's see. Yep, okay. And I'm going to share my screen. Let's see if I do this correctly. And it's going to be, there's my, okay. Can you see that?
Yes.
Quickly, the Historical Commission, of course, I am the official representative, and Grant also serves on the Historical Commission. So the Historical Commission, oh, I'm sorry, let me go back.
Take your time.
There we go, sorry. Okay, the Historical Commission, you know, since we have an official seat on this working group, you know, tasks ourselves with, you know, trying to put in our 2 cents in what we think would be a good name. And we discussed a couple alternatives in our last meeting in May. There was some talk about, you know, William Washington Park, because of course there's that story to be told there, although it's one of course, many. One of the problems that we sort of addressed and that I've thought a lot about is the fact that there's a very complex history in that park. You know, there's the Nipmuc presence. There's the William Washington story, which is really fascinating. There's the colonial presence. There's the, you know, the issue of the sort of settlement of the town and the formation of the requirements to have a town, you know, the mustering ground, the meeting house, and the burial ground, all of which can be seen from that site. There's the question of the artifacts and the history that they have, and you know, there's some 700 pieces at this point. So it's a very complicated story, and you know, what we felt, I think, was that we wanted something that was encompassing, or that all those stories would sort of fit under the same umbrella, and without privileging, for instance, just the colonial settlement, or the colonial aspect of town history. And so, you know, after discussing Crossroads Park or William Washington Park, or I think those are the 2 primary alternatives, we voted, for what it's worth, 5-0 on Southborough Heritage Park. And I had sent an email, I think, and I then went to the whole working group, and I believe to the select board as well, just indicating that that was our official choice, or our official recommendation. And you know, then there was an email sort of questioning that went out, the issue of the word heritage. And so I wanted to go over very quickly heritage parks and cultural institutions in Massachusetts. In other words, parks and institutions that have that in the name. So for instance, there are 8 Massachusetts state parks that are heritage state parks, all the way from Roxbury, let's say, in the, obviously in Boston, the easternmost part of the state, all the way out to North Adams, with Western Gateway Heritage State Park. So again, 8 state parks, as you can see there, that incorporate the word heritage in the name. Further, there are a couple of museum garden complexes in Massachusetts that use that name, the Heritage Museums and Gardens, which I've been to in Sandwich. It used to be Heritage Plantation Sandwich, and the name's been shortened now to Heritage Museums and Gardens. And there's also the American Heritage Museum, which is actually a military equipment museum in Hudson. I think their mailing address is Stowe, but street address is Hudson. In terms of municipal parks in Massachusetts, which is more directly to our concerns, as you can see there are 6 by my count. Heritage Park in East Longmeadow, in Fitchburg. There's one in Upton, which is called Upton Heritage Park, which actually most closely conforms to what we were recommending as Southborough Heritage Park would be the official name. Heritage Parks in Sudbury and Amesbury. And the most interesting one, and this is actually the background to this slide, is the Heritage Park in Weymouth. And what's interesting to me about that is that it was just dedicated in 2022. So 6 months ago in December. And actually the statue that features in that park, that's actually a statue of Abigail Adams, who was born in Weymouth, as it turns out. So of course, we're not at this point, that may be a stage 2 or stage 3 kind of thing, but we're not recommending any obviously figurative monuments, but it's a similar kind of park with a plaza and a winding path and plants and, and so on. So I think the point is there's a very clear precedent here for the use of the word heritage in the park name in Massachusetts with, again, 8 state parks, a couple of museums and gardens, and a half a dozen municipal parks. Now, the point of a Southborough Heritage Park, I think, that it would embrace all the components of this site's very long and complicated history, the Nipmuc history, the colonial settlement, the incorporation of the town, the William Washington story can be told under that banner, and also some accounting of the some 700 artifacts that have been recovered from the site, the bulk of which are currently in my possession. And, again, under this umbrella, we can tell that complete story, which I think would treat all parties and all concerns and all storylines with some fairness. And then secondly, there's the fact that Southborough, of course, celebrates annually a Heritage Day and has done so for nigh on a half century. I believe this is going to be the 49th Heritage Day celebration. And as I understand the history of that, there was some interruption for several years, because the first one goes back to, I believe it was 1967. And then there was a gap, and then the celebrations were resumed. So we've got a pretty long history in this town of a Heritage Day, which frankly, I've only been in the town for a few years, but my wife and I always attend, love, and it feels like a day of really folks coming together. And of course, Heritage Day is celebrated within a stone's throw of the proposed park. And indeed, I would think that a newly christened Heritage Park would be a place where some of that celebration in future years would take place. So it seems to me a kind of nice, and so there's been comfort, obviously, for a half century with the word heritage in terms of Heritage Day. And so it seems to me that it would, again, be a nice banner under which to incorporate the full history of that parcel and of the town. And then also it sort of dovetails very nicely with the fact that we have had for the last 50 years Heritage Day celebrations, and I hope they will continue, because I, for one, enjoy them enormously. So that is the basis for what we were recommending. And I'm cut out of the screen share. So thanks.
Well done. A lot of work. Thank you.
Not really. And it was pretty easy, and it's funny, I will say that heritage parks and various heritage museums are throughout New England. You only have to do like a Google map search and you see them all in Connecticut and in New Hampshire and Maine and, obviously in other parts of the country. But I concentrated for this brief presentation just on Massachusetts. so that people would understand that even as close as Upton, there's another heritage park. And so I don't, there was some suggestion, I think, in that email that went out, that this was like going to be a controversial choice. And I frankly think quite the opposite. I think it's sort of a unifying choice. And it doesn't privilege the colonial history. It doesn't engage in a kind of tokenism with regard to the William Washington story. It kind of puts it all under a broad umbrella. And then if we're telling, you remember, there's this sort of plan that would be worked out in conjunction with the historical society folks for a kind of guided, self-guiding tour around all of downtown. You'd get to that spot and you'd be able to tell multiple stories under the same banner. So that's our 2 cents.
Good. I think that says a lot. Now, Grant, are you, since you, I assume, were one of the voters for that, are you supportive of that name?
I would be, well, I think I would be fine if we ended up with that. I'd like to just hear what everyone else has to say first before making my comments, if that's okay.
All right. Bill, you came on first.
I'm trying to take the long view on the naming of the park. Well beyond my years. In 50 or 60 years from now, I wonder what that park, the principal theme of that park, will become. Open spaces, community spaces, always change over periods of time and are used for various purposes. I just wonder in 50 or 60 or maybe 100 years, if that park still exists there, what would be the appropriate use for it? Would it have a historical connotation or would it not? Would it have some other connotation? I'm not sure. That's why I would favor something extremely simple and perhaps less informationally specific. In other words, I like the idea of simply calling it the park at South Rose Center. And as it becomes used by organizations for various purposes in the future, it can be, there will be nothing in the naming of the park that will step on any of the future intended uses for the park itself. Ta-da! That's all I have to say, I guess.
All right, I wrote it down. The park at South Rose Center. Thank you. All right. And I understand your thoughts about future use because we don't know at this point. Okay, so Grant, you want to hold off? James, what are your thoughts?
Yes, so I just want to first of all thank the work the Historical Commission did on this, because I think I definitely came to a very similar place. I just want to talk for a minute a bit about, I did some research into the history of South Rose Heritage Day. This comes mainly from the Boston Globe. September 1967, Heritage Day created in Southborough. When we think about what you said, Bill, how this might evolve in the next 50 years, when we look back at what the former Southborough community left for us, when they created Heritage Day, it was, I believe, it was also at the same time that the Historical Society in town was created. And it was sort of in preparation for the town's 250th anniversary, and they were thinking about that. But specifically, what they quoted to the Boston Globe was that they wanted to, quote, preserve for our children their rapidly disappearing heritage of traditional pride and craftsmanship. That was the lifeblood of this young nation. Clearly, that might not resonate as much with us today, but we have the spirit of it in our Heritage Day. And I think that's why it's such a poignant name and why I think it's so fitting for us coming up on our 300th anniversary as a town. And then I want to share another story about South Rose Heritage Day, and that's something I came upon in 1989. South Rose Heritage Day was on the same day as Yom Kippur, and this was a very big deal at the time. It was an interfaith effort to move the festivities to the Sunday before instead of that Monday. The select board at the time ended up having 2 days of activities, which was a little controversial, but at the time, the Reverend at Pilgrim Church, Reverend Elvin Riggles, quoted this to the Boston Globe. He said, "It's Heritage Day. It reflects the deep variety and diversity of those who live in town, even the new, and what they bring needs to be noted and celebrated." And that's why I think heritage can be so poignant, because it's not just the heritage of us on this committee and the people who currently live in town. It's a living legacy. It's the heritage to create for every new generation that moves into Southborough. So if we go for Southborough Heritage Park, I don't know why I was thinking it would be possessive. It would be Southborough's Heritage Park. But I guess if we can avoid an apostrophe wherever possible, we should probably go for Southborough Heritage Park. So that's my thoughts on it. And as I'm saying that, it's just started broken out raining again. So I hope the lightning and thunder added to my presentation.
Very dramatic. Yes, the soundtrack. Okay, so Southborough Heritage, no apostrophe. Yep. All right. And Grant.
Thanks. Yeah, sorry, I went off camera there for a second to close the window. It's also pouring over here. Yeah, so I was thinking about different names. I was looking at the names of large parks in kind of major cities, Chicago, New York, things along that line, along those lines. And it seemed to me that there were, well, first of all, I think I'd say I would be fine with Heritage Park. So I just want to put that out there. I'm not opposed to that name. In looking at parks in various cities, it seemed to me that there were kind of two main themes for names, or perhaps three. One would be a descriptor of the place itself. So if it had a particularly notable landscape feature, or something mountain park, or something like that, which I don't think really applies here. So I kind of ruled out forest park, or something something along those lines. The second was kind of more of a descriptive. The second, I guess, theme among park names was kind of a more descriptive of, I think, perhaps more like an emotion that you might feel at a park. So like Tranquility Park, Serenity Park, Remembrance Park, something that, it's kind of trying to trigger an emotion. I toyed around with a few of those a couple times, but didn't really think that any of them were really a great fit either. Especially, it's kind of by a highway. We don't know how much remembrance or tranquility there will be. And then the third major theme for names that I found was naming it after a person. So Lincoln Park, Hyde Park, all these different parks in these different places, or a location, I guess, Central Park in New York. That's kind of similar to what Bill had said there. So those were the kind of themes that I noticed. And so just when I was trying to come up with alternatives to heritage, just if we needed an alternative, I was trying to come up with a name, like a park named after a person. And one thing that came to mind was Burnett Park. I just thought I would throw that out there. I'm not sure I love it personally, but I know that the Burnetts and Fays were very integral to the town's history. I believe Burnett actually owned the land that the parcel was on. They were kind of integral to the founding of the town, but also, kind of the main downtown stretch down there. So that was just a thought I had, but mainly kind of me scrambling my brain for trying to come up with alternatives if we needed them. But I just thought I would throw it out there. And I would be fine with heritage as well. So those are my thoughts.
Good, thank you. All right, so I like heritage, and I think it goes backwards in time and forwards in time. And that's one of the things I really like about it. I don't have a problem with the word having the wrong connotations at this point, like with the Heritage Society. It's like, no, you cannot take every word in the English language and co-opt it, as far as I'm concerned. So when we vote, I will vote for Heritage. So that's where I am on that. Any other thoughts?
Just a quick
Oh.
one. Oh, go ahead, Bill.
Maybe just a little bit with respect to the charge that we're trying to execute here.
Mhm.
The select board asked for a specific name or multiple names that they could choose from. Which is that?
I think they'll be fine with whatever our decision is. I think rather than saying we need to come up with 5 names and generating 5 names, we can say, we tried to come up with a list of 5 names, but we sort of all happen to agree on this name. And it's up to the select board, I think, to say yes or no. But I think we're, I mean, we can generate a list if you think it's a good idea, but I really can't think of another name for it. I wouldn't want to name it after one person. Often that's done because the person has, I think William Jennings Bryant Park in New York, that was done to honor him at a particular time. It's a kind of tying it to a person who didn't have specific involvement with it doesn't seem like where I want to go with it. And we can call it Tranquility Park, but that may end up being ironic considering the amount of traffic is going through there. And I like your idea of leaving it open, Bill, but the only thing is when someone says, where shall I meet you? They're going to say the park in downtown Southborough, and that might not be as clear a designation as I would need myself, getting lost frequently. So I just think Heritage will do it. James, yeah.
Oh, sorry, didn't mean to cut you off. As to the charge, and I wish Andrew was here because he wrote it, but it's just that the select board would like the group to consider formulating a new name for this space. So I think we can send them one that we're in general agreement on.
Oh, thank you. That clarifies.
I mean,
Yeah,
they have
I would-
ultimate authority. They could choose something else.
Right. I would throw out also 2 things. Is one is that there's, the name that is park is given right now may not be forever. It doesn't preclude some future generation from renaming it as they see fit or appropriate. And then on the issue of a single name for a single person, for instance, Joseph Burnett. I mean, the problem I have with that simply is that it privileges one history and one story. And I think what we've learned is that what went on there is a very complicated one involving Nipmucks, William Washington, colonial settlements, artifacts. And those artifacts, by the way, range from these very utilitarian items to very fine bone china that's clearly sort of made its way from probably Fay or St. Mark's leadership over to the site. So it's such an encompassing story, which is why I personally favor a name that allows the totality of that tale to be told.
Yeah, that was a concern that I had as well with that as well, Kevin. So I do agree that it's probably not the most inclusive name. I mean, obviously he was an important person, but there are other people in the town's history. So I do agree with that. Just in terms of Heritage Park, I'm wondering, as it sounds like a consensus is forming around that, do we prefer Heritage Park, Southborough's Heritage Park, or Southborough Heritage Park, or any of those 3 are fine?
Well, what the Historical Commission voted, for whatever it's worth, is Southborough Heritage Park, with the understanding that in colloquial usage, it's going to get shortened down to Heritage Park in all likelihood. But officially, you know what I mean? Like even in this, I'm sorry, the newly commissioned park down in Weymouth, I believe it's officially Weymouth Heritage Park, and the locals are just going to call it Heritage Park eventually.
Right.
So I would expect the same thing to occur over time here. But I think the emphasis on that this is the heritage of Southborough at least officially, is a nice sort of statement to make. And it goes with the Heritage Day and the fact that we are, I think, as a historical commission, really going to, make an effort to try to tell. And again, it's not, it's not a place that people are going to say, I'm going to go learn something at Heritage Park, but we're going to try to do our bit, to make it a place where people so inclined can, you can go for story hour, you can go eat your picnic lunch, or if you want to dial it up on your phone, you may be able to find some interesting stories. William Washington, the artifacts, the fact that, you're looking across the street at St. Mark's, founded by Joseph Burnett, and so on and so forth. So we'll try to put a lot under that umbrella on our side. And the beauty of that is, of course, is that nobody who shows up in that park is obliged to sort of open up that umbrella. They can just go ham if they want.
Yeah, I agree that I like having Southborough in the name, and then I would just say that I prefer it without the apostrophe personally. So
I agree.
we're
I
in
agree
agreement.
totally. Yeah. All right. I think it's wonderful and inclusive. We're not taking public comment because it's not on our agenda. I just got a text from Andrew that he's leaving a charity event in Boston right now, so he's not going to be with us. So I think that's gonna do it. If there are no other comments, I'd like to move a vote. Would someone like to make a motion?
If I may, Margaret,
Yes.
I think we can still have public comment even on the matter, even if we don't have a public comment section. I don't know if anyone in the audience would be interested, but I think maybe just as a courtesy, we should ask, and then if there's not any, I think move on to a vote.
Okay. I don't see any hands up. I see Sam, Annette Nocera, someone, Flavia, I don't know the last name. Marcy Jones is with us, and Sam Stivers is with us. I do not see any raised hands. So
Okay.
all right, then I'm gonna make a motion, if I can get this off my screen. Yes, I am going to move that the St. Mark Street Park Working Group submit to the Select Board the name Southborough Heritage Park for this parcel of land.
Second.
I'll let you get it, Kevin.
You can have it, James.
I write the minutes, you don't get a choice.
All right.
Okay. History is written by the minute takers. All right. All right. Mr. Miller,
Aye.
Mr. Farrington,
Aye.
Mr. Nichols Worley,
Aye.
Mr. Sines.
No,
All right, Ms. Landry, yes. So we have 4 in favor, 1 opposed. All right. Right, and I shall write that up and submit it to the Select Board. Can we read our minutes and approve them right now, James, or is this going to be too much for you to deal with?
I just finished typing them up. If you can give me
Yes.
permission to share my screen.
All right.
And just to jog my memory, we approved last meeting's minutes at the end of last meeting, correct?
We did. It's
Okay.
like the snake that eats its own tail, right?
Yes.
We got it done.
I would say we should do that every meeting, but as I'm taking minutes now for historical, I'm not sure that's quite possible.
No, too many things being discussed in depth, right? You need to share your screen, right?
Yes, I just
All right. I make you a co-host, correct?
Yep.
All right, there you go.
there we go. Can everyone see this?
Could you zoom it in a bit?
I just pinched it on my pad, but that's,
Wait. Give me one moment and I will.
No rush.
There we go. Okay. One more time. There we go.
Mine will pinch because I'm on an iPad.
That's it.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. I believe we have to say, oh, at the top, do we have to say June 28th at 7 p.m. or do you just do that in the administrative?
I think we can do that here.
Okay.
Okay, James, in naming the park, the second point, Historical Commission voted it was 5-0.
Oh, I must have misheard.
That's okay.
The only thing I would suggest is in the list of people that were present, I would, at the end, I would write absent, Andrew Dennington, just to make sure. Yes, thank you.
I didn't want to call him out specifically, but
I know, well, that's okay. It's then we know that who's involved. All right.
I also, if we're doing minor things, I don't think you need a comma after Bill signs if you use an ampersand. Oh, at the very top, sorry.
oh,
Oh, dear.
The Oxford comma takes.
As an
it, yes.
Oxford
Yeah, I know.
comma, I'm
We're gonna have a big argument on that one.
Well,
All right.
generally you wouldn't do it with the symbol, you would do it with the word.
No, the symbol, I understand.
Yeah.
and then
All
I
right.
did just
I will, James, or who should I can send this PowerPoint because it was document consulted.
if you just want to send that directly to Marguerite.
Okay, Marguerite, I will send you the PowerPoint that I
Thank
displayed.
you. Thank you. That's
So that
good.
can be submitted with minutes, and that might be useful in bringing the full select board up to speed, although I'm happy to show up at a meeting and make the same remarks.
All right. That's
It's
fine.
helpful.
James, could you scroll up just 1 or 2 lines? Did we vote to submit it to select board? Like, we don't have the power to designate it, right? So
Yeah.
voted to recommend Southborough Heritage Park to the select board, right?
That's good.
Yeah, that's good. All right. Looks good.
All right. Shall we, do I hear a motion to approve the minutes of right now?
Well,
So moved.
according to the
Second,
according to the minutes, doesn't Marguerite have to move, or who moved in the minutes?
I did.
Margaret, who did?
It's written. Nichols really moved, signed seconds. All right. Follow
Okay.
the roll.
All right. Mr. Miller. Mr. Farrington, I didn't hear you. Kevin, I assume that's a yes, though, right?
I think we lost him.
He looks
Oh
frozen.
my
Yeah,
goodness.
he's
I hope he
frozen.
didn't get hit by lightning. I'm listening
That
to
lightning got him.
thunder, these thunderbolts. All right.
Take an
Well,
act of God to stop this committee, and we lost. Okay.
All right, unfortunately, we just lost our,
We lost a quorum.
anyway.
we
Lost a
lost our
quorum.
quorum. Well,
We can
I-
wait for a minute.
Yeah, let's wait a few minutes. Hope he comes back. Just tidy it up.
all right. Hang on a second. I'm gonna.
That was poor timing.
That's so bad.
It will still be our fastest meeting ever, I think.
Yes, I think that's something of a first. Okay. Hang on a second. I'm gonna give him a quick phone call and he can call it in. He can phone it in.
There we go.
We lost power for a second and we're back up, but just my modem is rebooting.
Oh, no. Well, listen, you can vote we're approving the minutes now.
Okay,
You can vote. You're being heard by the whole meeting. I'm just holding the phone up.
okay, well, my vote is aye.
All
And
right. Thank you. Mr. Farrington,
Aye.
Mr. Nichols Worley,
Aye.
Mr. Sines,
Aye.
and Ms. Landry, aye. So the motion carries, and I think this is our last vote. The meeting is adjourned at, what time is it? Was it
Oh,
going to be
wait. We need to vote to adjourn.
7:42.
7:42? Thank you, everyone. This has been the experience of a lifetime park-wise. I really think I can never find another park committee that will hold a candle to this one. So well done, everybody. And thank you from the bottom of my heart. And Kevin, if you send me in your PowerPoint, I will make sure this all gets posted. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
All right.
Oh, wait, we have to move to adjourn.
We have to
correct?
vote.
Oh, yes, motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. Mr.
Oh, I thought you moved. Sorry, never.
did.
Somebody.
I move we adjourn at 7:47, like the airplane. All right, so Mr. Nichols Worley, I can see you. Aye, okay, Mr. Miller,
Aye.
Mr. Farrington,
Aye, and it's been a pleasure, everyone.
yes, ditto, Mr. Sines.
Aye.
All right, and Ms. Landry, aye. All right, there we go. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
It's been great.
Bye, well done.
Bye.